Very works. Thank you. And it is going to be in Sanford, North Carolina, and I believe it's just in 2 days that we're going to turn North Carolina red and make Donald J. Trump the next president of the United States. Now, I got to ask, who voted early in this? Wow. It's a big crowd. Well, and who is going to vote on Election Day? Good. All right. So most of us have voted early. That, you know what that means? You can spend the next 2 days getting everybody who hasn't voted early to the polls on Tuesday, November the 5th. And everybody, of course, who has already voted, you guys, you can't take the next 2 days off, right? You got to keep working. Got to keep getting people to the polls. The only way we're going to win this race is to swamp the vote and make this thing too big to rig. So let's go out and do that together. Now, there's a website that we set up called swampthevoteusa.com, swampthevoteusa.com, and I would normally say you can request a ballot or vote early, but you can't do that anymore in the state of North Carolina. So what you can do there is to check your registration, check your polling location at swampthevoteusa.com. You can also get involved in our turnout efforts. Look, right now in the state of North Carolina, it's about as good as we've ever had it. We have never gone into Election Day with an early vote lead in the state of North Carolina, and we are right now. We are leading the race. So that's the good news. The bad news is the Democrats are going to try to swamp the vote in their own way on Election Day, so we got to make sure that every single friend, every family member, everybody who hasn't gotten to the polls, we got to make sure that they get there, and that's why we're here, is to remind you that we have got to win, not just the days before Election Day, because that's only half the battle, and I'm glad that we won it, but we got to win Election Day too, and that's what we're going to win. We're going to make Donald Trump the winner of North Carolina, but the president-elect of the United States. Now, the stakes of this election couldn't be higher, of course, and I think it's important to remind our fellow citizens that they could have it so much better, and in fact, when Donald Trump was president, they did have it so much better. Look, I brought this just to illustrate how much Kamala Harris's inflation has cost us. This is $5,000 right here. This is 5 months of Kamala Harris's inflation. Every North Carolina family is paying this in additional grocery prices and additional rent prices and additional housing prices. And ask yourselves, how much bigger is this stack going to be with 48 months of Kamala Harris's leadership? The answer is it's going to be way too high. Now, meanwhile, Donald J. Trump would like to give every single American this in the form of a tax cut. So you got to ask yourselves. You got to ask yourselves, every 5 months, do you want Kamala Harris reaching in your wallet and taking this out? Or do you want a president of the United States who is going to give you more of your hard-earned money back and make it easier for you and your families to prosper? That's what's at stake for North Carolina. And I got a guy in the front here asking me to give it to him. And, sir, we're not Democrats. We don't pay people to vote. Your reward for voting for Donald J. Trump is that your checking account's going to get bigger because we're going to pursue common sense economic policies that make us all more prosperous. That's how you're going to get richer, sir. But I can't blame you for trying. It was worth asking. Look, Kamala Harris, it's simple. Kamala Harris broke this economy and Donald J. Trump will fix it. Kamala Harris inherited an economy where we had 1.5% inflation, and over the last 4 years, her inflation has cost North Carolina families about $28,000. Kamala Harris inherited the safest and most secure border in the history of the United States of America, and in 4 years, we have seen the number of illegal aliens in this country grow to 25 million. Kamala broke the southern border, and Donald J. Trump will fix it. I don't know if you saw the jobs report a couple of days ago, but the American economy lost 28,000 48,000 private sector jobs. We lost 46,000 manufacturing jobs in just the last month. Kamala Harris broke the private sector economy, and Donald J. Trump is going to fix it. And of course, whether it's housing prices, whether it's mortgage interest rates, whether it's grocery prices, everything has gotten more expensive under Kamala Harris's leadership. So again, we have to ask ourselves, do we want a president who broke the economy, broke the border, broke your wallets, or do we want a president who has already fixed it and will fix it again when we give him an opportunity to govern? Now, here's the thing. I actually saw, I saw Tim Walz just a couple of days ago, my Democratic colleague who has to run around trying to convince the American people that Kamala Harris is fit to be president of the United States. We were on a tarmac in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we were about to hit the road and come to Arizona and then, of course, come back east where we're campaigning for the next couple of days. And, it occurred to me that I've had tough days at work, and I'm sure every single person in this room has had a tough day at work. But I bet none of you have ever had as tough as a day as Tim Walz does. Because think about this. Tim Walz has got to go around and convince the American people that Kamala Harris has the competence to be the president of the United States. I'm sure you've had a tough day at work. I don't know if it's ever been that bad. Tim Walz has got to go around the country and try to convince people that Kamala Harris, the sitting vice president, is somehow going to change and do something different over the next 4 years that she hasn't done over the last 4 years. Tim Walz has got to go convince people that Kamala Harris is going to be different than she has been. She's going to fix the problems that her policies created. You know what I get to go around and do? I get to go around and talk about the fact that when Donald J. Trump was president, we had the fastest rising take-home pay in 40 years in the United States of America. I get to go around and talk about the fact that when Donald J. Trump left office, inflation was at 1.5%. Americans can afford the basic necessities of a good life. And I get to go around and talk about the fact that when Donald J. Trump was president, we were able to secure the southern border, and we told people who came here illegally into this country, go back home and come through the proper channels. We're not welcoming illegal immigration by the hundreds of thousands. That is the Donald Trump record, and that is the Donald Trump plan for our future. And it's funny to watch Kamala Harris. She gives these interviews. And, on the one hand, obviously, I disagree with Kamala Harris on all these issues. I criticize her every single day. On the campaign trail, I criticize what she has done to the United States of America. Then, on the other hand, she goes and does an interview, and I think she picks us up about 100,000 votes. So, Kamala Harris isn't all bad, right? Every now and then she helps us out. And here's the thing. When Kamala Harris, when she's got a teleprompter in front of her, she throws out a bunch of slogans, and sometimes they sound ridiculous and sometimes they sound okay, but we can't pay attention to the slogans of Kamala Harris. We've got to pay attention to what she's actually done. And what Kamala Harris has actually done is that she came into office and bragged about undoing Donald Trump's successful border policies. She came into office and said that she was going to go to war on American energy, and that's exactly what Kamala Harris did. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we can't afford groceries and why our citizens can't afford to buy a nice home. She came into office and said she cast the tie-breaking vote on trillions of dollars of new spending. And so every time you hear Kamala Harris stand before the American people with a teleprompter in front of her and say, on day one, we're going to tackle the affordability crisis, or on day one, we're going to secure the southern border, you can ask Kamala Harris, day one was 1,400 days ago. What the hell have you been doing for the past 4 years? Stop talking about your job and start doing your job. But as much as she pretends and as much as she's got these slogans about how she's going to somehow do something in the next 4 years that she hasn't done while she's actually been the sitting vice president, again, she gives us the gift of going out there and giving interviews. And even though they're always softball interviews, and even though our friends in the press never ask Kamala Harris difficult questions, sometimes they ask her easy questions and she still screws those up. And the definition, of a Kamala Harris gaffe is when she accidentally tells the truth, because sometimes she does do that. And a couple weeks ago, I don't know if you saw this, but she gave an interview with The View. And I always say, look, the sacrifice I make as your next vice president is I watch Kamala Harris on The View so that you don't have to. Look, we need you. You're welcome. We need you as sharp as you possibly can be for the next 2 days, because we got to turn out the vote. So don't go and watch this interview, because you lose about 20 IQ points if you do. But I watched this interview, and remember, she talks about how different she's going to be from Joe Biden when she's got a teleprompter in front of her. But they ask her in this unscripted interview, what would you have done differently over the last 4 years? And think about all the things she could point to. The wide open southern border, the unaffordable grocery prices, all of the pain and suffering that her policies have caused for the American people. What would you have done differently over the last 4 years is the easiest question imaginable. And Kamala Harris says, nothing comes to mind. Well, think about this. How is the person who admits that she would have done nothing different over the last 4 years, how is she going to solve the problems that have been created by the last 4 years of policy? If she's not going to do anything differently, how is she going to lower your grocery prices? If she's not going to do anything differently, how is she going to make home ownership more affordable for our young people? If she's not going to do anything differently, how does she propose exactly to close the border that was opened under her watch? And the answer is she doesn't plan to do anything differently. So for the people of North Carolina, the choice is very clear. It's a choice between more of the same, more high grocery prices, more unaffordable housing, more open borders, more fentanyl in our communities, or the choice is, do we take this country in a different direction? Do we get back to peace and prosperity? Do we get back to the leadership of Donald J. Trump? And that's what we're going to do. Now I want to tell you a story about President Trump, and I think it illustrates the difference between the character of the two candidates, because the media, lies obsessively, of course, about President Trump, but I actually think that there's something really important that I learned about him a few weeks ago, and that was after the second assassination attempt. Now, we all saw the first assassination attempt. He raises his hand in the air and says, fight, fight, fight. I was inspired by that. I think that everybody here was. The act of defiance in the face of an assassin's bullet. But a few weeks after that, after a second assassination attempt, the president called me and told me what had just happened. And I said, oh my God, sir, are you okay? Clearly you're physically okay, but that's a traumatic thing to happen, a second assassination attempt in as many months. And he says, yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm kind of pissed off, though, because I was going to make a birdie on the 6th hole, and the Secret Service wouldn't let me finish. And it kind of occurred to me in that moment that that's the kind of person you want in the Oval Office when the world goes to hell, because you never know how somebody's going to react under a moment of crisis until you actually see their response under that moment of crisis. And you've got Kamala Harris, who runs from the friendly American media. Can we trust that person to negotiate for us with Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia, Xi Jinping, the leader of China? No, of course we can't. Because she can't even talk to the friendly American media. She sure as hell can't be trusted to negotiate on our behalf on the world stage. But you know who I do trust? The guy who took a second assassination attempt with good humor and didn't lose his cool and went back to work the very next day. That's who we want, doing the American people's business. Now, I know the president has sacrificed, of course, a lot in the name of public service, but also his family has sacrificed a lot in the name of public service. And so, we've been thrilled to have a number of dear friends of mine. Senator Bill Hagerty's on the plane with us, going around the country. Of course, the most important person who's here, no offense to any of you, but is my lovely wife, Usha, who's been a great... He's been a great partner, of course, but just my best friend, and it's fun to get to do this with your best friend. We've got the great Senator Ted Budd and his lovely wife. Thank you, Ted, for being here. But we've also had my dear friend and the president's eldest son, who I think would like to say a few words. Donald Trump Jr., come on up here and tell the people why they need to vote for your dad.
Hello, North Carolina. How's everyone doing today? Very nice. Listen, guys, I saw it coming in. I love that you've all almost early voted. But now, if I got to spend like the last 3 months on the campaign trail doing like 4 to 7 stops a day, you guys can spend the next 3 days rounding up, finding your friends, texting them, calling them, making sure we make this too big to rig. We have an incredible opportunity right now to do something for our country, something that's so spectacular, something that's so different. It's just not the typical bureaucracy anymore. Think of now we have like an actual like America First bench. How great has JD Vance been out there? Then you add in guys like Bobby Kennedy, let him fix the problems that they've been poisoning our kids with at health. You have Tulsi Gabbard. You got people from across the aisle coming in to finally put common sense first. And then you have the ultimate, Elon Musk. How about you put him in there and clear up some of the bottlenecks and the things that are broken in DC? I mean, the guy literally, he's putting things into space in like a few weeks. He started this a couple of months ago, and he's outperforming NASA. That's been doing it for like 75 years. I mean, isn't that perfect? Isn't that exactly what we need? And it's exactly why DC is pushing so hard against it. That's all they have. They have that bureaucracy. With that bureaucracy is money and power, and that's all they care about. You see it each and every day. So we can do something different, but we cannot do it by ourselves. We saw they can cancel the most powerful guy in the world. They can shut him down. They can censor him. They can manipulate him. They can say things he didn't say, or they take like the first like quarter of a sentence and just neglect to inform anyone about the rest of the sentence. Whatever they do for their narrative, they will do it. Okay, the fake news, they're going to fake. We see that. And we also understand that we are not in a fair fight because of it. That is $1 trillion industry. You combine that with another $1 trillion in big tech, functioning as the propaganda arm of today's Democrat Party, and you realize we all have to function as a team together, and we can do that. I mean, I thought JD's example, JD pulling out that fat stack of Benjamins. We were in Vegas, one of the guys hit on a slot machine, not exactly the most manly form of gambling, but fine. But I thought it illustrated a great point. But I think another example that I like to use when I talk about it is I took 2 of my sons. Last summer, we were on a father-son fishing trip. We came back and they were hungry. They were 10 and 14 at the time. And we went to McDonald's, where my father is now allegedly a fry cook. Now, the Biden-Harris economy is so bad that Donald Trump has to not only run for president, but he has to work at McDonald's and as a garbage man. Just to make ends meet. And you know what I loved about it? It was the media response to McDonald's. Oh my God, it was a staged opportunity. It's like, no, really? Like, I thought he was actually working there. I mean, I that's how insane they are. Think of that. Okay, but I take my kids to McDonald's, and I'm not one of these guys, liberal virtue signaling. My 2-week-old baby was crying the other day about the potential of nuclear proliferation on the Korean Peninsula. It's like, no, I know exactly who I am. I'm very comfortable with it. I'm open and honest about it. I'm the son of a billionaire from Manhattan. But if Donald Trump Jr. takes his children to McDonald's and has sticker shock, that is a serious problem, folks, okay? Like, that is a serious problem. Like, McDonald's was never, until the Harris-Biden economy, it was never a luxury item, right? And under my father, it won't be again. but we have to get him there, okay? This notion that Kamala Harris is going to be an agent of change. She's going to be, if she was going to change anything, oh, she's changed a lot. It's all for the worse. But like, if she was going to change anything for the better, wouldn't you have done it by now? I mean, you are the vice president of the United States. You're number 2 in charge. And you can't come up with anything you would have done differently. Wouldn't have done Afghan withdrawal differently. Wouldn't have handled the border differently. Think of the crime, the death, the fentanyl that's come across the border under her watch. She's not going to do anything differently, guys. Thinking that Kamala Harris is going to do something different, that's like crapping your pants and changing your shirt. You switched out Biden for Harris. It's literally the example. And you know how we know this? Because after about a month, when they finally forced her to put up her policies on her webpage, she cut and pasted from Joe Biden's playbook. Didn't even change the source code. Nothing is going to change. Don't be gaslit by it. Don't believe it. Just get all of your friends out. If we do this, we will do this together. Okay, we can take back our country together. We will function like a team. We will actually have unity. We will end the insanity of men in women's sports. We'll end the insanity of our open border policies, where they let in 600,000 criminals, 13,000 murderers, 16,000 sex offenders and rapists. Think about that. Those are U.S. government statistics from their administration. They know that's coming across our border, and they allowed it to happen anyway. This is not sane. They're not worried about any of that. They'll allow that to happen. But if someone adopts a baby pet squirrel, justice for Peanut. No, but think about it. Our government will let in 16,000 rapists, they'll let in 13,000 murderers, they'll let in 600,000 criminals across our border. But if someone has a pet squirrel without a permit, they go in there and kill a squirrel. Think about it. That's the Democrat Party. That's where they'll go. That's their overreach. They want to control every aspect of your life. The big stuff, the stuff that matters, the stuff that's killing our kids, destroying our neighborhoods. That's different. We got to follow the woke playbook. Change it all on November 5th. Yes, it is. Change it all. So, guys, it's up to you. JD's going to be in there. The whole team's going to be in there. But you guys have to make that possible. You guys have to be that catalyst for change to allow it to happen. So whatever you would do if you woke up on November 6th and Kamala Harris was president-elect, whatever you would do for that mulligan, whatever you would do for that do-over, do it for the next 3 days. You act and function like you're the third monkey in line for the ark and it's starting to rain. Because that's the reality of the situation. So North Carolina, thank you so much. JD, thank you so much. You guys are the best. We love you, and we will always, always, always keep fighting for every one of you. Thank you, guys.
So I know Don's fired up about Peanut the squirrel. We were on the way down here from Cincinnati. He was like, is it really the case that the Democrats murdered the Elon Musk of squirrels? And I said, yeah, it sounds like, have you seen the videos of this squirrel? He's a genius, or he was, unfortunately. But the same government that doesn't care about hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrant criminals coming into our country doesn't want us to have pets. The craziest thing. Look, let me leave you with a couple thoughts here, because I know we're going to get on to the next spot, and I want to make it clear that if you are undecided in this election, I think it's important to consider what's at stake. And I know all of you are not undecided, but there are a lot of people who are going to watch at home. We're going to see the clips from this. And I think it's so simple. The media is trying to distract us. They're trying to talk about everything other than which candidate in this race is going to make your life better. Which candidate in this race is going to take this money out of your pocket, and which candidate is going to put it back in? The answer is we already know. We don't have to guess. Kamala Harris, over the last 4 years, has been taking money out of your pocket with inflation. Donald Trump already put a lot of money back in your pocket when he was president, and that's exactly what he's going to do again. We ask ourselves, how do we create the prosperity of the Trump economy? How do we go from low inflation and rising take-home pay to where Kamala Harris has got us today? And the answer is very simple. Kamala Harris decided to wage war on the American energy industry. Because think about this. If the truck driver who's delivering the groceries to the grocery store is paying 45% more for diesel, then all of us are paying more for the groceries at the grocery store. If the guy delivering the lumber to the job site is paying 40% more for gasoline, then all of us are paying more for the house that was built at that job site. So the Donald Trump plan to get us back to economic prosperity is very simple. It's just about common sense. Where Kamala Harris would like us to buy oil and gas from tin pot dictators all over the world, Donald Trump wants us to drill, baby drill, buying from American workers in American territory. Where Kamala Harris talks about wanting to raise your taxes and reward foreign corporations that ship our jobs overseas, Donald J. Trump is saying, why don't we give American workers and American companies a tax cut? And why don't we penalize the foreign corporations that are stealing our jobs and shipping them to China and Mexico? That's common sense. Where Kamala Harris has rolled out the red carpet to illegal immigration, has offered to give Social Security and Medicare benefits paid for by you to people who have no legal right to be in this country, Donald J. Trump is saying, let's finish the wall and send illegal aliens back to their home countries, which is where they belong. This is not rocket science, my friends. I really do believe that we're ready to unleash a golden age of prosperity in this country. We've got the best workers. We've got the best natural resources. We've got the most beautiful country in the world. The only thing that is broken about the United States of America is Kamala Harris's leadership in Washington, D.C. So in 2 days, I invite the people of North Carolina to join me in saying to Kamala Harris, you are fired. Go back to San Francisco where you belong. We don't want you in Washington anymore. And while Kamala Harris attacks her fellow citizens for daring to criticize the job that she has done as vice president, if you think that she's done a crappy job on the border, she'll call you a racist. If you think that you should be able to afford housing and groceries, her boss, Joe Biden, will call us garbage. And here's the simple message to the leadership, the broken, corrupt leadership of Washington, D.C. Our fellow citizens are not garbage for not being able to afford groceries. The people of this country are not racist because they think that we ought to have a secure southern border. We are not garbage for thinking that we ought to kick the Mexican drug cartels and the poisonous fentanyl that they brought into this country the hell out of our country. But while none of our fellow citizens, whatever their politics, are garbage for thinking that Kamala Harris has done a bad job in just 2 short days, we're going to take out the trash in Washington, D.C., and that's what we have an opportunity to do. Now, we're going to have to hit the road, but I want to leave you with one final thought and one final request to continue to work to get out the vote. Because as much as I'm going to look forward to beating Kamala Harris and the Democrats in just a couple of short days, and trust me, I'll probably enjoy it more than anybody in this hangar, this is not just about red team versus blue team. This is not just about Republican versus Democrat, because look, we got a lot of Democrats and independents who we're proud to have on this team. This election is about giving the American people the leadership that it deserves, about giving the American nation a president who puts our citizens first, about an American leader who has compassion for the people who have the legal right to be in this country, not to illegal aliens who have taken advantage of this country. That's what this election is about. And think about all of our fellow citizens, the people who built this country, the people who go to work every day and keep it running, and they're suffering right now. They're suffering because of that broken leadership in Washington, D.C. I've met parents whose teenagers died of a fentanyl overdose because they did what a lot of teenagers do. They took something under peer pressure, and because the Mexican drug cartels have taken advantage of this country, what they took was laced with fentanyl. And so they paid for that teenage mistake, not with a lecture from their parents, but with their lives. We have got to fix what's wrong in this country so that American parents can raise their children in safe and secure neighborhoods. That's what this election is about. I talked to a woman who told me that for 40 years, she and her husband had a family ritual. They would do steak night every Friday night, but last year they canceled steak night for the first time in 40 years because the groceries got so expensive that they were unable to do something that they had done for a half of a century. Now, I happen to believe that if you work hard and play by the rules, you ought to be able to afford steak night on a Friday night with your loved ones. And that is what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the Americans who want to afford a nice meal. We're fighting for our fellow citizens who can't afford groceries and housing because of what's gone on in this country for the last few years. We're fighting for American parents and grandparents to raise their children in safe and secure neighborhoods. We're fighting for the basic principle that if you work hard and play by the rules, you ought to be able to get ahead in this country that all of us love. Now, I believe that that can happen, and I believe it will happen, but it won't happen unless we give the American people a president who is fit to lead this great nation. So in 2 days, North Carolina, let's do exactly that. Let's make Donald J. Trump the president of the United States. We're going to do it. Let's do it together. God bless you.